Hello everyone, this is Andrew from Crown Academy of English. Today we are doing an English vocabulary lesson and it's all about 4 ways to use the verb suggest. So the word is suggest and here is the pronunciation. Listen carefully. Suggest, suggest. So in the middle it is a j sound, j. It is a verb and the meaning is to propose an idea, thing or action for other people to consider. So we're proposing something to other people. Example. Mark says, I can't decide what dessert to have. And the waiter replies, I suggest the chocolate cake. So the waiter is proposing a thing. He's proposing a type of dessert. Okay? And in this lesson, you will learn 4 ways to use the verb suggest. So this is one way. In fact, this is the first way, suggest plus a direct object. And you will also learn suggest plus direct object and an indirect object. Suggest plus the ing form of a verb. And finally, suggest plus a that clause. So let's start. So the direct object, so this is one that you've already seen. I suggest the chocolate cake is an example of direct object. So the direct object indicates what we are suggesting. And it is usually a noun phrase, a noun phrase. And this simple structure, it does not indicate to whom we are suggesting something. Okay, so we do not know the person to whom we are making the suggestion. We only know the thing. However, it is often obvious from the context. Example. Mark asks, what shall we eat tonight? Jane replies, I suggest pizza. I suggest pizza. So pizza is the direct object. This is a noun. And so this is what we are suggesting. And it is obvious that Jane is suggesting pizza to Mark. It is obvious that the suggestion is for Mark. Therefore, it is not necessary to specify it in the sentence. Okay, so Mark obviously knows that Jane is speaking to him. So it is not necessary for Jane to say, I suggest pizza to you. Okay, we do not need an indirect object. So if we need to specify the person, then we use an indirect object. So let's look at that. So this is more detailed. We now have a direct object and an indirect object. And before the indirect object, we use the word to. So the direct object indicates what we are suggesting, and the indirect object indicates the person to whom we are suggesting something. And we put the word to before it. And this order is very important. We cannot change this order. We cannot put the indirect object here. Example. I suggested a hotel to Mark. So I suggested a hotel to Mark. So this is what I suggested, and this is the person to whom I suggested the hotel, to Mark. Jane suggested a good shop to my parents. So shop is the direct object, and my parents is the indirect object. It is the person or the people to whom we are suggesting the shop, and we use the preposition to before it. Can you suggest a nice restaurant to us? Okay, so this is a question perhaps you would ask at the reception of a hotel, or maybe at the reception of a tourist office. Can you suggest a nice restaurant to us? So us, this is the indirect object, and restaurant here is the direct object. Okay? So suggest plus direct object plus to plus indirect object. Suggest plus the ing form of a verb. And the ing form of the verb indicates what action we are suggesting. Okay, so this time it is an action. We are suggesting an action. And this simple structure does not indicate to whom we are suggesting something. So again, in this structure, we do not refer to the person. But again, it is often obvious from the context. An example. How will I travel to London? Jane replies, I suggest driving. I suggest driving. Okay? Jane says, I'm very tired. What should I do? And Mark replies, I suggest sleeping. And a common mistake is that we do not use the infinitive after suggest. Okay? So we only use the ing form of the verb after suggest. We do not use the infinitive. Example, I suggest to drive is wrong. This is the infinitive of drive, to drive. This is a mistake, big mistake. I suggest to sleep is also wrong. This is the infinitive. No, we must use the ing form. I suggest sleeping. Suggest plus a that clause. So what is a that clause? Well, it is the word that plus the subject plus another verb. And the that clause indicates what action we are suggesting. And the that clause also indicates the person doing the action, because we have a subject here. Okay? We now have a subject for this other verb. So we know who the person doing the action. And in British English, we may use both the present simple and the past simple tenses. Example, I suggest that you drive. So this is the that clause. That you drive. This is the subject. This is the verb. Okay, so we know the action that we are suggesting, and we also know the person, you. Mark suggested that I called him. Andrew suggests that we share his YouTube channel with our friends. So here we see that Andrew suggests, and then we have the that clause. We share. We share. So this is the that clause. Okay? And please do this. I am actually asking you to do this. This would be a big help. So if you have a Facebook page or a Twitter account, or maybe a blog, or maybe you are active on a forum, then please share the link to my YouTube channel with your friends and other students. That will really help me. I've been making videos and lessons since 2013. Okay, so nearly 5 years, and I've never asked for money. I make these lessons for free, but I do ask you to share the link to my channel with your friends and other students. That's the only thing I ask. Okay? And very important, in informal English, it is very common to omit the word that. To omit means to miss out, to not use the word that. So, example, in normally, as we have already seen, we write suggest plus that plus subject plus verb. This is the normal that clause. Example, I suggest that you drive. Okay, so this is what I have already explained to you. But in informal spoken English, very often we omit the word that. So we have this structure usually. Suggest plus subject plus verb. We don't use the word that in informal spoken English. So we can say, I suggest you drive. Okay? Another example, in normal or formal, more formal English, we say, Mark suggested that I called him. But in informal spoken English, we can say simply, Mark suggested I called him. So this is perfectly acceptable. So this is correct in informal English, and this is correct in more formal or sort of normal English. Okay? If you have a doubt, if you're not sure which one to use this one. And finally, an advanced rule. This is quite advanced, so don't worry if you don't understand this. So, in formal English, we may use the subjunctive for the verb in the that clause. So if we use the subjunctive, this is the form. We say suggest plus that plus the subject plus the verb in the present subjunctive. So as a revision, this is the normal present tense. Okay, the normal present tense is the indicative mood. So this is basic English. You already know this. I walk, you walk, he, she, or it walks with an S. We walk, you walk, and they walk. Okay, so you already know this. This is the normal present tense. Now, the present subjunctive is slightly different. It's I walk, you walk, and this is where it's different. He, she, or it walk. Okay, there's no S in the third person singular for the subjunctive. This is the only difference, because all the others are the same. We walk, you walk, and they walk is the same. Therefore, there is only a difference in the third person singular here. So this is the only one you need to remember. So if you want to use this, this is what you need to remember. So an example. If we were just using the normal or informal English, we would say, I suggest that he walks to school. Okay? But if we want to use a subjunctive, if we want to be very formal, then we say, I suggest that he walk to school. Okay, that he walk, without the S. Okay? And remember that in normal or informal English, the word that is optional. Remember, sometimes we can choose to omit this word. So for this context, we can also say, I suggest he walks to school. Okay? But in formal English, for formal English, then we always keep the word that. So we would have that and the subjunctive. Okay? So as I say, this is very advanced. If you do not understand this, then don't worry. I can assure you that even many native English speakers, they do not know this rule. Okay, it's true. And I'm sure even some English teachers perhaps don't know this rule. Okay, so it's advanced. So it's not a big mistake if you do not use the present subjunctive. Okay, there we are. That's the end. Hope you enjoyed it. And as I said, don't forget to share the link to my channel with other students, please. Thank you.